Maybe you didn't realize this, but the Rockies haven't had a team ERA in the top half of the league since 2009. Each of the last 3 seasons, they've had the worst team ERA in MLB. They're one of 4 teams who has never had a Cy Young winner. And if we're being honest, there's a chance they're never gonna get one. You can even make the argument, and it has nothing to do with their pitching infrastructure. Although they're considered one of the more behind-the-curve teams from a pitching development standpoint, the bigger problem here is that they're playing in a park that absolutely destroys starting pitchers. But don't fret, I think they can solve this if they believe in 2 ideas. My name is Lance Brozdowski. I'm a player development analyst for Marquee Sports Network, which is the Chicago Cubs RSN. I have my own YouTube channel and a Substack as well, where I covered the league nationally. I've done a little bit of work for MLB Network, particularly in the MLB draft coverage last year. And I'm going to be contributing occasional videos to Stark Raving Sports, which I'm very excited to do. And to be honest, I'm a data guy through and through, but I think a key in a lot of my content is trying to distill that data down as much as possible, such that the average fan can understand it, which is the entire point of this video on Coors. Most people know that Coors Field is at an extremely high altitude. This causes batted balls to carry more. I feel like some people think that the main impact Coors has is creating home runs, which it does, but there was 7 other ballparks over the last 3 seasons that inflated home run production more. The key thing is that the outfield at Coors is massive to compensate partially for the balls carrying so much. So things like singles and triples are inflated, in particular, hits overall. But on the pitching side of things, that high altitude and thin air causes pitches to move less. Yes, literally move less. There's a 25% haircut on pitch movement at Coors. If you throw a nasty sweeper, 20 inches of horizontal break, you get on Pitching Ninja. At Coors, that exact same pitch is only gonna break 15 inches horizontally. If you have an average fastball, let's say 16 inches of that carry or vertical break, well, at Coors, you are suffering. That thing is 12 inches of vertical break, and it's pretty unusable unless you're throwing absolute gas. Pitches that move more are hurt more, but that other side of the coin is where the advantage lies. Things that move less are hurt less. But wait, don't all pitches move? Yeah, they do, but one of the ways organizations measure movement is a bit quirky. Gravity is removed from the equation, which is represented by the center spot on a pitch plot, which you could see for any pitcher if you go to their Baseball Savant page and look right here. The center point of a plot is what you'd call a bullet slider, and it's called that because it's literally spinning like a bullet on its way to the plate. Now, the way I read these plots is to start at the center and think about from that bullet slider how you get above the bullet slider. Well, you'd want to get behind the ball such that the ball is rising almost more than that bullet slider. This is how you get 4-seam spin, you get fastballs. Think about it another way. Let's go to topspin on the ball, right? Now you're in front of the ball, you're catching topspin. Now you're getting below those bullet sliders. You're creating curveball spin or topspin. Those are your 2 primary vertical components on pitch plots. And then as you get to side spin, you get into those lateral sweepers and arm side movement as you pronate through, say, changeups and sinkers and 4-seam fastballs, gets you into the top right of the plot. From that center point, you can get to any kind of pitch movement, with the idea that further away from that bullet slider you are, the more spin-induced movement you're creating. So applying our 25% haircut to pitch movement, you could see the advantages and disadvantages that Coors presents. Pitches that move less or are near the center of our plot are affected by the altitude at Coors less. This is the first way to beat Coors. Max out these bullet sliders. And by max out, I mean push the velocity of these pitches. This bullet shape thrives when you kick it above 85 miles per hour, where it plateaus until you can break the 88 mile per hour barrier and see some amazing results. So who throws these bullet sliders the most? On the starting pitcher side of things, we have Dylan Cease, Jared Jones, Logan Gilbert, Grant Holmes. Among relievers, we see guys like Julian Merriweather, Prelander Baroa, and Rule 5 guy Ryan Fernandez. The reason this strategy could work is that to the Rockies, the hard versions of these bullet sliders are more valuable than they are to other teams. Stuff models, which aim to predict how a pitch will perform based on the movement we're talking about, tend to like these hard lateral movement pitches like that of sweepers. and those shapes veer from the center of our plot, the area that I'm proposing the Rockies target. Of the top 20 graded sliders last season among pitchers with at least 60 innings, just one of them fits into this true bullet slider category, and it was from lefty Cole Ragans. Given that a lot of organizations value what stuff models have to say, my theory is that these bigger sliders are slightly juiced up by the market. There's just more demand for them. But again, those are the pitches that contract at Coors. So if you're the Rockies, you're almost swimming in waters where there aren't as many competitors from a financial standpoint, and that gives you perhaps a slight advantage. I'd even be really interested to understand or learn whether the Rockies make subtle adjustments to their own internal valuations on pitchers who have pitches that do not have a ton of this movement we're talking about. My theory right now is that they actually might. If you look at the 10 most thrown sliders on their staff last season, only one of them was a true sweeper. And 5 to 6 of them fit into this bullet slider category of ours, but a majority of those were bordering on more of a cutter shape due to the vertical break or glove side movement they were picking up. They were veering from the true center of our plot. The thing that jumps out to me the most is that as an organization, each of the last 4 seasons, the Rockies have thrown fastballs and sinkers at a rate that was league average or much higher. This gets to a larger point that while there's clearly a shape that might work in this park, they also have to really push the usage of that pitch, because Coors crushes all kinds of fastballs. Four-seamers take bigger hits because on average they have more total movement, but the reason you can't just throw sinkers in their place is that arm side movement, the signature tail that sinkers have, is also chipped away by the altitude, making them objectively worse pitches. So is there any way around this? It's an expensive one, but it's through velocity, which is the second way that Rockies pitchers can beat Coors. It's not just that velocity is good, it's really good. For every tick you add to your four-seam fastball above 91 miles per hour, you cut off 10 points of your opponent's slugging percentage. When you hit 95, that slug decay accelerates to 20 points until you hit 99. There's also this weird thing that as you throw harder, shape becomes less important. We're always going to consider shape, but I think of it as velocity protecting against bad shape, or almost giving you more room for error to have average shape and still have an above average performing pitch if it's, say, above 96, 7, or 8 miles per hour. I've also talked to some smarter people than me who propose this abstract idea that there's actually biomechanical disadvantages, so disadvantages in how you're moving to release the ball at those high velocities that prevent you from having good shape. And wouldn't you know, in almost any other setting, that is a problem. But given bad four-seam shape generally means your pitch has less movement vertically and horizontally, you are closer to the center of our plot, which means you, as a hard-throwing pitcher with poor fastball shape, are less affected by Coors. So do the Rockies have any hope? I actually think they do. Not to win a Cy Young, that's probably impossible, but to put together better than league average pitching staffs for 2 or 3 years in a row, I think they have a shot. For the first time in a long time, they have one of the best pitching prospects in baseball named Chase Dollander. The slight problem is that he has a four-seam fastball that he likes throwing a lot, and as we mentioned, fastballs get crushed at Coors. The positive is that his slider is just on the border of that bullet shape we're talking about, and he sits 96 to 97 on his fastball with command that for his velocity I think is plus. The equation for him becomes how little four-seam fastball can he throw and not walk 10% of the batters he faces. They also drafted another pitcher last year, Brody Brecht from Iowa. Now this guy's interesting because his best pitch is a slider, and it's not just any slider. It's a slider that Fangraphs' Eric Longenhagen gave a future 80 grade to, which is the highest grade you could receive, implying it's better than 99.8% of sliders in all of MLB. But there's also some distinct features on it that I think work at Coors. It's in that bullet slider category, but it has a bit more drop, and it's unusually hard for that shape, averaging 87 miles per hour last year in college. It's the kind of pitch that won't be affected by Coors much. He also throws from an unusually high slot. It's the exact kind of arm that I want to see post 150 innings and throw 50 to 60% of that slider. His command of the thing is pretty good, and if the Rockies really want to be innovative, he could rival a guy like Dylan Cease for the highest rate of slider usage among qualified starting pitchers. Now, do I wish they grabbed the 2 relievers who threw the highest rate of these bullet sliders last year, Josh Staumont and John McMillan? both of whom were available on waivers or whether it be on a minor league free agent contract in the last calendar year. Yeah, absolutely. I think they should have done that. But I think as long as they have some structure for what they're doing going forward, whether it be focusing on gyro sliders or the other thing I didn't touch on in this video, splitters, which don't get affected that much at Coors, or if they want to loosen up their pockets and push towards velocity, there is a path to getting this team into the top 10 or 8 of team ERA in baseball. And the thing to watch too going forward, they've thrown a pretty good amount of four-seam fastballs and sinkers over the last 4 seasons, as I mentioned. But last year in particular, they did make a slight cut, where in 22 and 23 they were way up there, and now they're a bit back down, more towards league average. This has to be the year where they completely fade those 2 pitches and push into the bottom 5 in the league. I think that is a key indicator as to whether they're actually innovating and pushing forward and believing in some of these modern ideas that can drive this team to some success. Because if there's any team that shouldn't be throwing a lot of four-seam fastballs or even a league average rate of four-seam fastballs in their home park, it is the Colorado Rockies at Coors Field.